That is 6:30 p.m. We'll call the East Bay Charter Township Board meeting to order, and we will begin, if you'll join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, great. And we'll start with roll call attendance.
Walters.
Present.
Lyle. Here. Cook.
Here.
Bartlett.
Yep.
S. Cortade.
Here.
M. Cortade.
Here.
And Friend.
Here. All right, with that, we'll move on to the agenda. We'll look at the agenda for review of conflict. You have your consent agenda, which does have the added items of equipment surplus for ballot storage containers, PAR plan grant agreement, parking lot lighting, Jen's bathroom plumbing, ambulance offer of part-time employment, and then before us for regular business, we have the Corridor Improvement Authority tax increment financing, Beckett and Rader contract amendment, the sewer ordinance, Township Hall parking lot improvement, special events ordinance, safe routes to school easements and construction management, America 250 internship, appointments and compensation. With that, are there any conflicts of interest? Okay. With that, we'll then move forward to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda or a motion for some other adjustment of it?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda of the East Bay Charter Township Board for Monday, May 11th, 2026.
Okay. Is there support?
Support.
Okay. Motion is made by Walters and supported by Bartlett to approve the agenda as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, we'll show that the motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to public comment, and at any time, I'll just quickly go through the rules, and I'll save you, we have a limited number of people here, so we'll just invite anybody up for public comment. You have about 3 minutes to speak, and I'm happy to hear your comment if you would like to deliver one. Oh, don't you want to deliver a comment? And your government class can then see you on TV because this is aired. Okay, they're not, no takers on that. No. Okay, so with that, we will just move forward. We do have correspondence and reports in your packet. And with that, you'll see we have several County Road Commission reports. The Traverse Area District Library has their annual report, and then there's a meeting log in there. And then we've provided links for some of the boards, and those links would be available if you looked at the internet packet. With that, are there any questions on that? Okay, we will move from the we'll move from the correspondence and reports, and we will go to the consent agenda. And Ann, if you will go over the consent agenda.
Certainly. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda, for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent agenda, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. This evening, you have minutes, April 13th, 2026, regular meeting. Recommend approval. From the general fund, check numbers 20315 through 20390, paid in the amount of $130,206.82. The emergency fund, check number 6211 through 6242, paid in the amount of $87,605.97. The receiving fund, check number 3022, paid in the amount of $70,742.12. The escrow fund, check numbers 2146 through 2151, paid in the amount of $18,106.88. No checks were issued from the roads SAD fund, and there were 2 payrolls. The first one, April 5th through April 18th, check numbers 8019 through 8021, totaled $89,118.55. and included $15,744.80 for payroll tax. The payroll dated April 19th through May 2nd, check numbers 8022 through 8024, in the amount of $85,626.93, and check number 8024 for $2,278.78 for Michigan withholdings. Total payroll, $174,811.48, and total amount paid, $481,473.27. No proposed budget adjustments. You have equipment surplus ballot storage containers, power plan grant agreement, parking lot lighting, Jen's bathroom plumbing, and an ambulance offer of part-time employment.
Okay, great, thank you. With that, I will note on the minutes, I did not add them absentmindedly to the packet. However, they are available to the public on our Documents on Demand under the meeting date for last month, and they are provided on your desk tonight. So I don't think there's an issue with that. We also need to correct in the minutes on page 2. It shows the escrow fund as 2140 to 2144, but that was corrected at the last meeting to 2145. And so we just didn't catch that in the draft minutes. So that needs to be adjusted to 2145. So does everybody see or follow where I'm talking about under item E? Okay, so with that, we'll ask if there are any items that anyone on the board would like to remove from the consent agenda to place elsewhere on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll ask the public if there are any items on the consent agenda that they'd like to move elsewhere. I know that you'd like us to remove some of them and extend the meeting a little bit longer, but we're going to go ahead and keep it since we see no other comments. We'll bring that back to the board for a potential motion. Is there a motion on the consent agenda as presented, noting that change on the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the note added to the minutes, correcting the check numbers.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Walters, support by Cook. Further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote, Ann.
Walters.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Lyle.
No.
M. Cortade.
No.
Bartlett.
Yes.
S. Cortade.
Yes.
And Friend.
Yes. Okay, with that, we will move on to our item 8A, that is the Beach District, the Corridor Improvement Authority, tax increment financing. That begins on page 39 of your packet. And we did hold the public hearing on March 9th. We are 2 months later here on May 11th. We do have Claire Carner here who can review this for us and talk about some of the modifications that you see on this cover page. How are you tonight, Claire?
Good.
Good.
Everyone. Okay, so this TIF plan is probably fairly familiar to you at this point. It's very similar to, or almost identical to what was presented originally. So as you'll recall, there was a public hearing held by the Township Board in March. And so the Township Board has to wait at least 60 days prior to adopting the TIF plan. Prior to the public hearing, we did all the notifications of the taxing jurisdictions, the property owners, kind of all of that noticing. There was also a joint meeting held the 24th of March between the Township Board and the Corridor Improvement Authority. Based on some input that we've received, I would say it was a mix of input from our Corridor Improvement Authority Board, as well as just some of the discussions we've had with the taxing jurisdictions. First of all, we updated the taxable valuation for the corridor to reflect the 2025 levels. So we have those. So you'll see that that's reflected in the updated TIF projections. We also updated the revenue projections to reflect a 4% rate of growth. We feel that this is still, it's reasonably conservative, but I think it's more accurate than the 2%. Beth and I felt like the 2% was significantly lower than what we've seen historically and likely lower than what we'll see moving forward for a commercial corridor like that. We looked over the last 5 years, that growth has been substantially greater than the 4%. But just considering kind of allowing for a downturn in the economy and kind of changing dynamics over the next 20 years, we felt like a 4% rate of growth was reasonable. We also removed the special millages because the county TIF policy exempts those. So we took out, we're not capturing anything from animal control, veterans, seniors, conservation district, or the road commission. Those are all special voter approved millages that are not included in our TIF plan. I will mention, and perhaps you've seen this in the news or some discussion of it, there was resolutions that are included in this as attachments to this draft TIF plan, opting out. There was an opt-out from Grand Traverse County, from Beta, and from NMC. So we are having ongoing conversations with both Beta and the county, who have indicated interest and willingness to work with the township for a tax sharing agreement. So those are the conversations that Beth and I are working with them on, and any agreement would be included in this plan as an addendum. So perhaps it wouldn't be 100% contribution, it could be some percentage. There's a variety of different options for tax sharing agreements that we've seen in other communities. I'll mention just the development side. So we have reordered the project list to reflect the anticipated order of implementation. Of course, we don't know for sure. It's a 20-year plan. The order of implementation will be based on funding opportunities, priorities, grants, those types of things, different projects that come up. But this is kind of our best guess based on priorities and the complexity for kind of the order that we'll implement those projects. And we also did clarify on the project list that we are looking to have the safe crossings every quarter mile. We wanted to make sure that there was opportunity to allocate those. So happy to answer any questions. Beth also serves on the board, so if there's anything you want to add, feel free. But
Only that we were not, the press coverage, we were not surprised by the opt-outs. There are several counties actually downstate that opt out of every one and then follow up with an agreement. So these are things that we were not surprised about. We were a little disappointed so far that NMC did not extend any interest in having follow-up conversations. But again, the door is always open to do so. But the county and Beta were readily agreeing and willing to, and actually even says in the county resolution, their desire for good faith discussions for an agreement. Any questions for Claire? Comments? Or what would the potential motion be this evening, Claire?
the board tonight would have an opportunity to adopt, deny, or delay action on this resolution, 2026-
It would be 14.
14, to adopt the corridor improvement authority development and TIF plan tonight. And we feel that it would make, with the understanding that this will be a limited amount of revenue, because right now we're collecting only from the township. We feel that getting this plan in place now, it sets that base year at the 2025 base year. And we will continue to work with those taxing jurisdictions for buy-in, as opposed to delaying and, yeah.
Can I just ask the question?
Sure.
I know that you've made the comment that several of the partners may come back to the table some shape or form, but currently, right now, as it sits, is just East Bay. How has the CIA board talked about scaling down more? Because I know where intention is to go out for grant funding, but if we're only going to collect $4,000 this year, 8,000 next year, it's going to take a long time before we have enough seed money to be a viable partner on our own to do these projects.
Yeah, I think, so we've had some, conversations with the Corridor Improvement Authority Board. I think within the next few months, we'll have a lot better idea of how much revenue we're generating over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, based on the agreement. So I think once we get those agreements in place, then we'll have a little bit more, a better idea of the revenue that we can project.
And
Can I,
yeah, of course.
is there a mechanism in place for our businesses on that corridor to participate? My fear is that the township funds will be used in a manner to foot that. And when it benefits all of us, it really directly benefits the businesses there too. So is there a way that can be approached?
There is an opportunity for a millage, so we could do, that would absolutely be a possibility. In talking with like the Traverse City DDA, they have, I think, a 2 mil that's assessed on the business owners in the DDA district. It's a very small portion of their total operating. I think it covers, a portion of staff time. I think from our perspective, we're staffing this just kind of with our existing planning and zoning department. At the same time, we're really working to create business owner buy-in, community. It's not just business owners, it's also residents along the corridor. So we have really been working to build trust and buy-in from that business community and from the residents along the corridor. So we felt that, pursuing millage plus Corridor Improvement Authority TIF at this time would probably not be well supported.
And the millage portion would not be assessed township-wide, it would just be
It could be,
assessed
yeah. It could be just within the
just in that
district.
corridor.
Special assessment.
Not a
Yeah,
millage assessment that would be a vote of the people, it'd be a special assessment. I'm just trying to make sure I
Yeah.
get my head around it all.
So one thing is I wouldn't coin too much that all of them have walked away. I really have, and I understand in reading the press that that's kind of what the takeaway is, but we have had significant and positive communications with Beta board members, the county board members, and really with the county, when we started conversations, it went from why should we participate to the last discussion they had at a board meeting was more, how do we participate and what does that look like? They don't want to get into, we are really living on the tail end of the Traverse City DDA. And, whatever you think of the Traverse City DDA, in some ways they're almost victims of their own success. It's been a very successful DDA, but it's also extended a whole bunch of years. And there are some other issues that I don't follow it that closely, but I do know that there's been a lot of political issues with it. So much so that the city rather has changed how they'll move forward with it as far as there has to be a vote, I think, of city residents and so forth. But we're definitely battling some of that, but we have a lot of the, or will in the agreements, a lot of the things that will keep the guardrails on a TIF district that the city didn't necessarily have. So through those agreements, we can end it at 20 years, that sort of thing. So we can combat some of those reasons that organizations wouldn't want to do a TIF. So I think we are having good conversations with the majority of the three. And then there are, even if there are limited funds to begin with, because NMC opted out, we still can leverage what we have there in grants and other types of opportunities as well. We're also looking at, within the statute, looking at, because that corridor is very beta focused and is having a lot of success with the Bay Line, that it's potential that it could be determined a qualified development area, which then would make it subject to additional capture at the state level. So there's potential for funding there. Now, do I know that that will work for sure? Absolutely not. But what I will say is what we have said in a lot of these meetings, which is this is a regional corridor and this is a regional issue. So we believe it should be a regional solution and not just the township, but it should also be the county. It should also be Beta. It should also potentially be any other funding sources that are allowed by statute.
Sure, and that's, I guess, why I'm cautioning that we are not going to deplete our general fund to help grow this. Yes, we're partners, but I am concerned if we don't have some collaboration, how do we get the matching funding elsewise? And I'm not a supporter of it depleting what we have.
And so the funding that will come in, so the projections that you see are just projections. It could be 2% growth as they originally came to us. It could be 10% growth, right? Likely, it'll be somewhere in between and it'll change every year. But what it is, though, none of that funding is baked into our costs right now, our expenses or our revenues right now. So that is all money that may happen, may not happen.
Okay. Again, I just want to make sure that we're not dipping into
Yep.
what could potentially help other areas of the township to try to get a match.
Yeah, the other point that I'll make would just be that, you know, with or without the participation, and we are confident that there will be some level of participation, the township would still be contributing that same amount on an annual basis. You know, whether we're the only one participating or whether we have, you know, full participation from all the taxing jurisdictions, it would still be based on our millage rate, that same yearly contribution.
And it's not funding coming from the revenues. If you looked on our, you know, even if I were to project revenues, you know, for our next budget, which we're getting ready to start our budget now, it would be across that area. It wouldn't necessarily be what's there. Does that make sense? So when I take a look at our revenue estimates, I go off of everything historically, our revenue sharing, all of those things. So this is a part of that, but not all of that, and it's not money we're receiving right now.
Right. Thanks for the discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's a pretty complex issue with a lot of nuances. It truly is. Matt?
Back up on the millage issue. If you were to impose a millage, would that include the residential down there? Or everything within
It
that?
would include, I mean, it depends on how you structure it, but yeah, it would include the entire district, which is from, you know, the edge of our property boundary, or the jurisdictional line with Traverse City all the way to the Acme line, and then a little ways up 3 Mile and 4 Mile.
Though we'll look for clarification on that too, because remember, special assessment district, the only people we can include in that are ones who benefit from that. So, and your special assessment district role is not necessarily your corridor improvement authority boundaries. So there could be some difference in there, I believe, by the statute that lets you do an SAD and the statute through the CIA that makes you declare a corridor. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I just think it's going to be a hard sell with residential down there,
I agree.
that they're not interested in a millage.
No, I wouldn't
They're not
think so.
interested in this in some ways.
We have heard from some, I just, was it last week with the, someone who was here for the Planning Commission had referenced the Corridor Improvement Authority to me that lived in the vicinity, and they were positive about it. But I agree with you, having a millage on it, it's not where we have gone with the funding of it at all, and that would be something that this board would have to take action on, and would have to be recommended by the Corridor Improvement Authority too. I don't think we're looking at that initially at all. And it would, again, if a special assessment district, remember that too, that can be pulled back if a certain amount aren't in agreement with it, you would need over 50%.
I know in talking with the city, this is just an example, but they instituted that 2 mil special assessment district, I think, many years before they instituted the TIF plan. So they weren't doing them both concurrently at the same time. They started with that millage for.
I think we should go ahead with it, just because if you don't get started, you're never going to get started. And it gives us at least a beginning point. And I know that at least the county board and the Beta are interested in further discussions on funding. And so I'm sure that they will come through with something. What that looks like, I have no idea. I don't think they have an idea because they haven't done it before. So why not us be groundbreakers?
Well, actually, that's, I appreciate your comments. They have done it before. The county has participated in the Traverse City DDA. The county has participated in the Kingsley DDA. And I believe there's been.
This, right?
Huh?
Not like.
Not like this in an agreement, you're
Yeah.
correct. They have just not opted out, so they have
Right.
participated. And I think there's one in Interlochen, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think we heard that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So can I ask this question?
Sure.
Not that I'm ready to say this so much, but if, worst-case scenario, Grand Traverse County chooses not to participate in any form, Beta also chooses that, is the mechanism available for us to close it and be done? Because as just East Bay, I don't know that it'll function. I don't know that I want to, that's what I'm saying, but once it's created, can you roll it back and be done with it if it isn't going to work?
So in theory, I would just say, and I'll let Claire finish this up, but my first thought of what you're talking about is, in that worst-case scenario, which we don't believe will happen based on conversations, we would still use that money to leverage grants and other funding mechanisms from state, federal, congressional appointments or allocations, you know what I'm saying? Different grants from different agencies and so forth. We do have support from different agencies, state agencies. We just had the head of Eagle for the state to visit the corridor. They were very excited about the plans, and we are on their potential funding list, very short list of funding for some feasibility studies in that area. So we do have already the line on grants that we can extend our reach already.
Yeah, and I think because we did this in 2 stages, first we created the Corridor Improvement Authority with the understanding that, we are moving forward with the development and TIF plan, but if not, the Corridor Improvement Authority can stand alone. And so, yes, we absolutely are looking for a financing mechanism, and the TIF was, from our perspective, the best tool. But as Beth mentioned, there are also grant opportunities. There's other opportunities. And so I think having a board that's really focused on this corridor is a huge benefit, kind of with or without that level of funding.
One thing I'll just mention as a trustee on this board is I think the residents will benefit, and that's what I like about this project so much. I've said before, I think in some ways, this is the residents getting to take a stake back in that corridor. It has so been driven by just private infrastructure and private industry, which are just hotels and restaurants, right? That the idea that we can have an impact with things that make it more residential friendly, to me, is very exciting. And I think that we can really benefit as residents, but not just East Bay residents of our region. Just like we all use different infrastructure and amenities in the city and in Garfield Township, same thing.
Well, I will say that I haven't talked to too many people, but the few that I have that have talked about this, I haven't found one that's in support of it, so that's just where I'm at. I was on board originally. I think I've jumped off now with the opt-outs and whatever. I know you're talking more, but still, I guess I'm just not in favor of moving forward with the TIF plan down there anymore. So, just my 2 cents.
Sure. Sure. Other thoughts or?
When do you think we are going to see resolution to the county and Beta's?
So we actually have a meeting tomorrow, actually. So we would think it would take a little bit of time. They have several things on their plate as well, but we think it'll take a few meetings to come to kind of the wording and an agreement that works. As I've told them, I think it should be beneficial for both the county and the township. So personally, if I were on, Claire's she's heard me say this before. If I were on the county board and to opt in or not opt out rather, and you would be stuck with the same dollar amount 5 and 10 and 20 years later, that just is a non-starter for me. But to be able to offer, hey, there's inflationary growth. Hey, there's a percentage of, the added value in there, then that's something that's valuable to both entities. As I said, a regional corridor deserves a regional effort, a regional solution. Yes, thank you. And I do think it, and I can appreciate the conversations, Matt, that you've had with some residents. I can. I also think back to the enormous amount of residents that participated in this, 700 that participated in the development of the corridor improvement plan and excited about those changes.
So let me throw this out here if I can.
Sure.
Would it make sense to delay, I'm sorry, Andy, would it make sense to delay our action until we get more feedback from the county and Beta? That way it's not dying
Yeah.
by any means, but it allows us as a board to hear how this may come together with these partnerships.
So I would say I don't think so. I think we would do more harm to it than good. And as I've said, in worst case scenario, there are still actions that we can take that benefit this under this current scenario. As I said, just the Eagle Grant alone that we're talking about.
I will also
Mandy?
mention that we have, sorry, Mindy, I'll just relate it to the deadline or timing. There's a deadline, which is the last Monday in May, so I believe it's 2 Mondays from now, is the kind of deadline for adopting a TIF plan that would be on the 2025 tax roll. Otherwise, it would be on the 2026. So as you know, there's been pretty significant development in this last year that we're probably not going to continue to see. And so having that base year lower allows for more incremental increase in taxable value that will put some revenue in this authority early on.
Mindy?
She just answered my question.
Well, that's good. We did mention this would be Resolution 2026-14. Are there other comments or questions, or is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to adopt Resolution 2026-14, to adopt the East Bay Beach District Corridor Improvement Authority Development and Tax Increment Financing Plan. That's a mouthful.
There's a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, there is a motion by Bartlett and support by Walters. Further discussion? Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Lyle. S. Corte.
No,
M. Corte.
No.
Cook.
Yes.
And Friend.
Yes.
4-3.
Okay, thank you very much. That passes. We move forward, and we'll move to the second item under the Beach District, which is the Beckett and Rader contract amendment.
Okay, so this was the, originally, we approved a contract with Beckett and Rader. It's funded under our USDA grant, and it was to develop our TIF plan, our development and TIF plan, which we just adopted. I would say over the last several months, I don't remember the exact date that we approved that contract, but I believe it was in mid to late 2025. We have utilized Beckett and Rader pretty significantly. They have assisted us with actually setting up our Corridor Improvement Authority Board. They did the bylaws for us. They've been meeting with the taxing jurisdictions. They've been supporting us pretty substantially with kind of getting this new authority up and running. John Icoangeli, the principal partner at the firm, has had significant experience with the TIF plan. So as you'll see, our original budget was for $10,000. We're looking to increase that by $12,500. And so it's a fairly significant increase in total cost, but it's covering kind of a much more broad kind of scope of the services that Beckett and Rader has been assisting us with. So that would be the contract amendment would be for that additional $12,500. We do still have funding under the USDA grant to cover that. Technically, we were supposed to spend out the USDA funding in 2025. They have extended the grant for us, but we do have sufficient funds to cover the contract amendment, as well as some additional banners that we're printing out and some updated decals along the TART trail.
Okay, Claire, so for just double clarification, this would be an increase of the contract of $12,500, but it is covered under the grant, and there are sufficient funds in that grant to account for it. Okay, are there questions, comments, or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal by Beckett and Rader for the development and TIF plan services for the East Bay Beach District CIA as presented.
Okay, is there support? Okay. There is a motion by Cook and support by Walters. Further discussion? Glenn, you had a question?
I think I understand it, but this 12,000 is all under the grant, correct?
Yes.
Not out of township.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? No. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote, Ann?
Cook.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Lyle.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
Bartlett.
Yes.
M. Cortade. And Front.
Yes. Okay, that motion carries. And thank you, Claire. We appreciate your work on this. And we will move on. You do have a couple things. I did kind of spread your topics out over the agenda, didn't I? Sorry about that. We are, next on the agenda is the sewer ordinance and possible adoption. Noah Carberg, who is the director of our Public Works, is here to answer any questions. You'll remember that we did have a redlined copy of this ordinance, and it was introduced at the March 9th meeting. What you have in your packet is the clean version of the copy of the proposed ordinance, and also the notification that went out for that. Noah, do I have anything else to add before? Okay, then for the board, are there any questions for Noah? Well, then we are free to, we have introduced it. It has been noticed that we introduced it. Is there a motion to approve the Uniform Sewer Ordinance of 1994 as amended 2026 and to publish the notification of adoption within 30 days?
So moved.
Okay. There is a motion by M. Cortade, support by Lyle. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Ann?
M. Cortade. Yes. Lyle. Walters.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Front.
Yes. You made it here all for that, Noah. Thank you.
It's not glamorous, I know, but thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move on to item C, which is some asphalt repairs here at the Township Hall and the library. Nathan Burns, our Facilities and Recreation Coordinator, is here to go over this. We had an RFP out to do some of these repairs. And before you get started in doing a recap, I just want to let the board know that very much have appreciated having Nathan here. He's been able to get a lot of things where we just didn't have the bandwidth and the time. We've had this RFP for a while and just didn't have the time to go through the process and the detail that Nathan has had. So very much appreciate that. Nathan, did you want to cover any broad topics and then see if the board has any questions?
Sure. Firstly, thank you, Beth. It's been a pleasure to be here. Yeah, so as you may see, the parking lot does need some repairs. The striping, there is alligator cracking, which is, a lot of small cracks that have spread. So we were able to get 6 bids back from contractors. We narrowed those down to 3, and working with our engineer that had some more experience about the repairs. And we chose one from Mullen. It was the most comprehensive. Basically, in working with our engineer, they kind of posed the question to us, if you're looking to completely redo your parking lot, in the next 5 to 6 years, that we could probably get away with just a resealing and a striping. But if we're wanting to invest a little more money now to actually cut and repair with hot asphalts some of the areas that are more damaged, we're going to see much more longevity out of this repair. So that's why we went with the Mullen bid, and you'll see in your packet, they have some photos of the parking lot. The area is outlined in yellows where they're going to be cutting and replacing with hot asphalt. There's some root damage in the back, as well as some new arrows at the entry and exit to the parking lot. This will include the parking lot over by the East Bay Library. And then we will also work with our contractor to include the striping for the elections, for the media and the canvassers. So, is there any questions?
We only got the one bid in our packet, but we had the others. Okay, well, I haven't got them here, so I'm gonna have to ask. Did the other contract have the asphalt repair as far as saw cutting, or no?
Some of them did and some of them didn't.
Have you got a copy of them with you, or no?
Not on me, I don't.
Molden's was the most comprehensive. So just 2 things while you're checking that out, Glenn, just for the board to know. Wade Trim, our engineering firm, wrote this RFP, as I mentioned some time ago. Nathan went and took a look at that. At one time, we had included with this Jens Park at the same time, so we pulled that part out of it. But the RFP was written by Wade Trim, and then when the bids came in, Nathan was looking through them. He actually called upon Garth. Garth came out, you know him as one of our engineers at Wade Trim, walked the parking lot, looked over the bids, and helped Nathan reach a conclusion for a recommendation to this board.
So some of the other contractors, like the areas in the front where there's a lot of alligator cracking, they were going to put down a product called Gator Coat, which is essentially kind of a thicker asphalt tar sealant. There were mixed reviews among the contractors whether that product was really useful or not. Mullen has worked on the parking lot before. I know the gentleman that was here that gave us this quote was familiar with the parking lot, stating that they had worked on it before. And they did a really thorough job in finding the areas that needed repair. The one little square in front of the island on the front of the parking lot here on the northwest side, that's where we have a sewer drain. So that repair can be critical to prevent further damage, and you can see in that area and some of these others where repairs have been made previously, and there's also been some saw cutting and hot asphalt repair in the driveway previously. So I think the bid you might have been looking at, if that was from Wolverine, I think they I think they put the gator seal in that one.
Okay, they didn't have the saw cut, so correct?
Yeah, I don't believe the other ones. I think some of those did include the root repair in the back, but not the significant saw cutting and replacing with hot asphalt.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I appreciate you being able to put the election lines, we went out and looked at that, and it's like, a professional striping would be so much nicer than just a so I appreciate that. Where the drop boxes are, is very low, water collects there quite a bit, the cement gets kind of crackled, and I don't know if they have looked at that part of the reconstruction, if there's a way to build that up a little bit and still have it ADA compliant for no curb cuts or anything up there.
Yeah, now would be the time. I think in our motion, we put in a 5% contingency. I could definitely talk with the contractor and see, what that would cost. We're going to have all the equipment here. If we go with this, we're going to have the hot asphalt. So for them to add another section that's maybe elevated just slightly so that the water doesn't collect under those, it seems feasible.
And Tracy and I both, when we go and empty those drop boxes, we can be in ankle-deep water to do that.
So,
I wear boots a lot.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when they re-blacktop this, is what they're gonna do is smooth it out and seal it? Is it gonna raise the blacktop at all?
So they're not going to really raise the blacktop. They'll cut out these yellow areas and put in hot asphalt only in there. The rest of the parking lot, they'll just go over with an asphalt sealer.
Okay, because what I was thinking is what Sue was talking about, that thing always did, it collects water over to this side. And if they raise that at all, you're gonna have that much more coming over.
So one thing we could do is just increase that contingency. I think we put a recommended of 5% in there. We could raise that to 10%, and that might help buffer that a little bit, and we'll discuss that with them. We do also have, you'll notice, not that this is completely related to that, but it's just in the same area, so I mean, think of it, that concrete patch right there we have getting fixed, as well as you'll notice we've had some cones out in the back that were a little bit of tripping hazard. We've had those marked, and they'll be getting repaired as well. That's through a different contract, but,
Yeah, so there is a low area here in the front, kind of near this entrance, and you'll see where that concrete's all kind of busted up.
Yep.
That's actually been repaired previously. I don't know if anybody remembers, but you can see the spacers between the concrete slabs, and that's because the water and salt is coming into that area, and you can kind of see where it's running. So I guess would the interest be in Glenn that that eventually gets built up and that the water would drain somewhere else?
yeah, we'd talk with them about some solution there, whether that ends up being a drain or leveling that out or something.
What's happened, that whole sidewalk has probably sunk over the years a little bit. And that's where the popping is coming from, it's just all done cement and what have you.
So yeah, we would,
So,
so when we redo that cement, we'll be sure and seal it, which is something that we can continue to do, I think every year in the years ahead. But as far as the water draining into this area, we would have to look and see what the grade of the rest of the parking lot is. Just glancing out there, it does kind of seem like it is sloped this way, so if we were to change that, we would have to talk with the contractor and see if that's installing a drain, which could probably be pricey, or if we're building it up where we would be pushing that water to.
At a very minimum, at least we'll end up with less water. Well, I guess I would say, let's make the suggestion that we change this to a 10% contingency, unless the board wants to do a little bit more even. But I think we can work with the contractor based on the bid that they have. They were pretty thorough in their bid, if that's the way that the board would like to go.
Are we ready for a motion?
Sure, absolutely.
A motion to approve the 22,687 Molon Asphalt, Inc. bid with a 10% contingency of asphalt sealant, crack fill, asphalt repair, and striping, and the authority, and to authorize, the township supervisor to sign the related contracts.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Bartlett, support by M. Cortade. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your work on this, Nathan. It's very much appreciated.
And I'll look into that bump under the election boxes, and we'll take a closer look at that drainage.
Thanks, Nathan.
Okay, we will move on to item number D, special events ordinance. This is a possible adoption. We did have an April 13th, 2026 introduction that has been notified, and we have the opportunity to pass this ordinance tonight if we see fit. It would be ordinance number 1 of 2026. Claire, do you want to hit any highlights on this, or recent info or anything?
Yeah, so as I think was noted last month, would be replacing our transient activity ordinance. So we used our transient activity ordinance really as the basis for the special events ordinance and made some tweaks and edits as opposed to a complete overhaul. So it's very much based on the transient activity ordinance that currently exists in our books. I will say that in listening to feedback from the community, the changes that we made were really based on a desire to put some more protections in place for the residents. So we articulated the community benefits that a special event shall provide. So we better added that in the intent to the ordinance. We also added a requirement for documentation from an applicant to show that by approving this special event, they would not be in conflict with an existing site plan approval or special land use permit. So that goes back to, some issues that we've had, for example, with Lakemore. That was kind of what precipitated that. We also have a limit of 3 events on a private property. So any type of venue that's looking, I'll give an example of like Louis Rasho's property. They do the Farmland 5K. That's a private property. So with this new ordinance, you could have a maximum of 3 of those special events per year. So that's another way of providing those safeguards in place, as opposed to with our previous ordinance, it was kind of, open book. You can have as many as you want, but not so many that it becomes a land use, and then it has to be approved through the, site plan approval process. So this gives us a little bit more concrete, where we can say, nope, that's, beyond your special event allotment. We didn't want to extend that to public property, like a public park, because, and Mindy can speak to this, but I think the Planning Commission felt like then we'd be choosing winners and losers, because an applicant that wanted to do an event on a special park, on a special event on a park, if they didn't get there first, then they might not be able to do their event. And then we also have, I think, beefed up some of our additional details, the requirements for noise control, lighting plan, sound, proposed amplification. So we have more details that we're requiring for these. So that gives you a little bit. I know that you received some correspondence from Miller Cantfield on behalf of Protect Forest Lakes, and there was sort of a sentiment of, that it's a solution in search of a problem. I think that it is a solution, and I wouldn't say that we have significant problems, but this is a solution looking to address concerns that were expressed to the Planning Commission from members of the community.
Mindy, do you have anything to add from the Planning Commission?
I just want to say we did have a lot of discussion about this, and I think that, it made a whole lot of sense. We looked specifically at how this would affect some of our community partners, specifically Timber Ridge, and how, their activities and how this would affect them, to make sure that we weren't putting an undue hindrance to something that they've been doing for years, right? And I think we have something here that's going to be helpful to the community, because we did focus a lot on how these events affect the community and are beneficial for the community. So that's about all. The only thing that I just came to my brain and I have a question about is now we have the new Raptor Center on Louis' property. And we had community members that were talking about the Cortate Elementary School going over to Louis' property for this, that, or the other thing. Is this going to affect that?
So because that property went through site plan review, that would be outside of, the special events ordinance is really kind of regulating those kind of rare
One-offs.
that pop up. So because that's an event venue now, or not an event venue, but it's an educational facility that includes an allotment for gathering, and we had specific within that special land use permit what those gathering numbers would be, then that's totally within the purview, similar to like Sue Raymond with Raymond Farms. She would not be subject to the special event ordinance so long as she's within her special land use permit.
Glenn?
I read this, and I reread it, but I'm not sure I fully understand, is that if you're over 200,000 or 200, that you have to go through this, and if you're under 200, you don't?
So that's a great question, and
They're all great, I told you
I
before.
called our attorney today to ask about that, because my reading of the ordinance is that even, so if you go to, and I can pull out what page that is of the draft ordinance, and so in the packet, it's page 162 of the packet. Actually, the section is on 163, page 2 of the draft ordinance. It says, a special event means any temporary organized outdoor activity open to the general public, intended to attract attention, et cetera. So that's the definition of special event. So can it be less than 200 people? Yes, and still qualify as a public event. It goes on to say, without limiting the applicability of the foregoing definition and except as qualified below, here's some examples. So flea markets or other open air markets. If there's 75 people, they still require a special event
And
permit.
how would you know ahead of time? So that
Yeah.
makes sense to put the definition in that way, because there's some events you don't know what the attendance
So
will be.
outdoor concert, there's 100 people, it's still a special event. So we listed all of these things, and then the final one says any organized gathering of more than 200 people, kind of as a catch-all if they're, so I would say, and in talking with Nicole this morning, we could change that to 50 people. I think that would be perfectly reasonable. It's consistent with our current definition of places of public assembly, which is 50 people or more. So I think that would be a reasonable change to this ordinance, and it wouldn't drastically alter the way that we are administering the ordinance.
Okay, so then a homeowner could have a wedding in their backyard, and they could have up to 50 people, if that's what it's changed to, without going through all of this.
Well, so a homeowner, so that's one of the exempt act, so we have a list of provided, so farther down on page 2, provided that for purpose of the ordinance, the following activities shall not be considered a special event. So any homeowner that is having a gathering such as a wedding, a picnic, a family reunion, they are not, that's not considered a special event. They would not need to get a permit, and they would not need to meet any requirements in terms of total attendees. That's also a policy decision, if the board wants to discuss requiring permits, but that really was not something that the Planning Commission was interested in, and it's not something that we've traditionally required. We've always allowed people to have reunions, weddings, not a commercial wedding, but a wedding for their family, close friends on their property.
Right.
You and I had that discussion today. But let me just make sure that I understand correctly. if there were 3 of those on private property in a year, then a permit would need to be required at that point in time. Let's say there's a family reunion, there's a wedding, and another family member decides they want to do a wedding because it was so cool, all in the same 12 months.
The way this is written, you wouldn't need a permit. If we get to a situation where there's a lot of events happening, we would take a look at it from an enforcement standpoint and say, is this more of a commercial operation? Like, are these, weddings, are these, is this your family? If not, then that becomes more of a zoning issue, because that's not a use that's been approved by the planning commission. That starts to look more like an event venue.
And that would be regardless if it's 50 or 200.
Exactly, yep,
Or 300, whatever the family size is.
yeah.
The other thing that comes to mind, you got, what is it, Pine Hill that's over here on High Lake Road, just after you come off Hammond.
Yeah,
If they wanted to have weddings and receptions there, what would they have to do? Would all commercial fall under this, even if it's 50 people? Because it's commercial.
yeah, and I'm forgetting what they're zoned. I know I've talked with them on the phone before. I think they maybe have had weddings in the past, or they're interested in expanding that. So they would, if they wanted to be a venue that regularly hosts those types of events, they'd come in front of the planning commission for a special land use permit. If they do 3 a year, then they could, in a commercial capacity, then that could be done through transient activity permit.
I remember when it was owned by Prince of Peace Church, they had to go through planning, and Metro required them to have an entrance and an exit, but they didn't have enough property frontage to do that.
Yeah, I don't remember what any of that was, but
Yeah, I
I
don't
remember there was.
Yeah, and so they may have some approvals that we would need to go back and look through our files on.
The last question I got. Will this in any way allow weddings and wedding receptions at the old campgrounds, not Boy Scout camp?
No, this would not impact the approval that we've made through Camp Grey Lick. If they in the future are interested in a special event as defined in this ordinance, which they've communicated to us that they're not, but in the future, if they are interested in hosting a triathlon or something, they would go through this ordinance and need to be approved through this review process.
So remember, this doesn't impede their special land use. This is
Or their
outside
site plan approval.
site plan approval, yes. Okay, any other questions?
I'll just make one more quick comment, which is that Nicole advised us that if there are any desires for minor tweaks in this language, that we should, make the change, introduce it tonight, and then adopt it at a future meeting.
Well, let's see, did you have a question?
Well, I was gonna say, does this mean that we're gonna cut it back to the 50?
That would be board decision.
You're going to have, what Claire mentioned, I think that you're going to find so many then of these permits, rather than it
Well,
being,
if they're residential, they're not gonna need them.
right, if they're residential, they don't.
But if it's at 200, even for residential, I'm just rather put a stipulation on of 50 and,
I mean, like PGOs, for example, right?
Well, they're not
50,
private, they're public.
the public, we're talking
Well,
residential.
privately owned.
but they're privately owned. It's not a private, yeah. So PGOs, for example, if they did anything with over 50 people, they would need one of these permits. I mean, that's a very low threshold. And so I think we're going to tie up a lot. When we've heard, there isn't been a whole lot of issue with these.
Wait.
Go ahead.
if they do anything, let's say they do a car show. Let's get very specific. If they do a car show, they still need this permit, even if there's less than 200 people.
That's the way it's written right now.
That's the
Yeah.
way I understand it.
So I don't think that 50, I think that 50 is a great number, actually, because that's what's causing a lot of angst by our community, is that 200 is they're thinking this only is required for the 200, when it's really required for any of these activities.
The thing is, if you started out at 50, if it caused all kinds of problems down the road, it can always be tweaked, correct?
Yep, this is, yeah,
I'd rather
because
be
this
safe
is, there's nothing, non-conforming is not something we need to worry about
But we
since it's
can go
police
the other
power.
way, too, because this isn't a zoning ordinance. This is a police power, right?
Right,
Yeah.
so we can increase or decrease without worrying
There's-
about
Currently written
non-conforming.
for, if it's over 200.
Well, no,
Way it's being presented to us
go
tonight.
review the definition one more time, would you?
Why is it even necessary to identify a number if,
I don't know.
because
our
it just shows,
attorney-
it,
Our attorney
it,
drafted it
it
that
might confuse somebody if they look at it and they say, hey, the threshold for this permit is whatever arbitrary number we want to come up with, 50 or 200.
I mean, we could also remove that, because it's the section in the definition of the ordinance, it says, here are some examples. It
Right.
doesn't say, here's an exhaustive list of everything that's a special event. You really look at the definition of special event, and then they provided some examples.
I think that's just in there
We could remove it.
to say that, I can't imagine what it would be, but it doesn't fit with any of those special event guidelines, that if you're going to have 200 people gather, you have to get a permit.
Yeah,
Right.
no,
50 people.
I get it.
Right.
It doesn't really serve much of a purpose. It's not an example because it's vague. It's just, all the other ones are very specific in nature, and that one says any event. You've already captured that in the definition, right?
I mean, I think if you keep the D that mentions these places, and these aren't happening at private properties, these are at public places, privately owned public places, they're going to be captured a lot in these top definitions. The last one is just capturing any outlier large events. So if you set that low, you're going to be capturing absolutely everything.
One example could be like a political rally. That's not specifically in here, but if it's something where you're drawing 200 people, it really doesn't matter what the property is, it's open to the public, then that would be a special event.
I'm okay with going down to 50. I just think it probably introduces some confusion if somebody is trying to have some last-minute, event that they've cobbled together, and they read through this and be like, oh, well, I'm only going to have 40 people there, so I'm good. And then come to find out that they actually violated because they didn't really understand the actual definition above.
If we remove that bullet point completely, then we would have to let this be the introduction.
I think to be on the safe side, that'd probably be best, just because I think there's interest in this ordinance, and
I would say let's leave it alone. My opinion.
I would agree. Let's see how this works. This is general law. This can be changed. This has gone through the planning commission. They've had multiple opportunities to discuss it, hear from the public about it. They have had limited issues with the transient activity. However, the issues they have, they're, dealing with it in this. Let's see how this rolls and how it works through a season. This is, again, a general law ordinance that can be changed.
Well, maybe Claire can make a note on your annual report. You could
let you know how many,
address how this is working.
sure.
I mean, sorry.
Yeah, I can do that.
You're good at keeping all your stuff organized.
Yeah,
I would forget
sometimes.
by next year, but
So usually says when it takes effect, and it's probably 30 days. Oh, effective date. The effective date doesn't, it's not defined here, so if it's not,
Yeah, 13 has nothing, it just says
If-
effective date and nothing.
if it's not defined, then it would be when it's noticed in the paper. Normally, you'll see 30 days after a notification in the
A
paper.
lot of them are 8 days or 30. And if it doesn't define, it would get published and it's effective as soon as it's.
Right, right. Which means it would be in time for this summer season.
Right. Well, that was I guess my concern with trying to
Changing
change anything.
Delays it
Then we're
another
without-
month.
So is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 1 of 2026, the special events ordinance? Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Bartlett and support by Walters. Further discussion? And we'll do a roll call vote, Ann?
Bartlett.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
Cook.
No.
Lyle.
Yes.
M. Cortade.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. All right, we will move on to safe routes to school, and we do have the easements for our review here, and review and pay, acceptance and payment.
Yeah, so the good news is that we had over $26,000 in easements donated. So I was very, very
Wow.
appreciative of that. That
That's
was a
cool.
mix of consent to grade, which I think was only like 3,000 total, but then also the permanent easements were worth, in terms of fair market value, close to 27,000.
That's
So,
awesome.
we are seeking 3,886 from the Township Board to be distributed to some property owners. And we, so long as everything comes within our current budget, this will be covered by grant funding through the RAP, the revitalization and placemaking, and then the grants that we have from 2 different foundations. So you can see that there's a resolution here to authorize the payments, and you'll also see in the table here that goes through all of the easements that we did get. This was a tremendous undertaking. It was our first time going through the easement process. We had a lot of, we had assistance from Prine and Newhoff, which was really helpful, but Sam spent a tremendous amount of time, as well as I, just meeting with property owners. So it was a good learning experience, and you'll see all of those in green were donated. So we had TCAPs, we had some commercial businesses, we had private residences that were supportive of this trail donating their easements, which we're very appreciative of.
This would be Resolution 2026-15, and I specifically do want to thank those entities, well, all of them, for signing the easements, in particular, as well, those who donated. We had multiple meetings with several of them, in particular Grand Traverse Area Catholic Schools, and they went through with their easement, very appreciative of that. As well as, some homeowners that had some specific issues on drainage and wanting to understand that. Prine and Newhoff took some extra time to make sure they understood all the ramifications, as well as staff in meeting with them. So with that, I'll move to approve Resolution 2026-15 for the Safe Routes to School Trail System easement payment authorization, and I would add authorization and acceptance on that title. Let me just change that one more time. Move to approve Resolution 2026-15, a resolution for Safe Routes to School trail easement acceptance and payment authorization.
Support.
Okay, so there is a motion made by Friend, supported by Cook. Is there further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Friend.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
M. Cortade. Lyle. Walters.
Yes.
And Bartlett.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you for the work on this. And we will move on to construction management with Prine and Newhoff. Claire, you want to go over that?
Okay, so this is the last contract that we're seeking for this project. So this will, as you'll recall, the last contract that was approved for Prine and Newhoff gets us to basically construction, like it gets us through the letting, the bidding, to kind of the point where we begin construction. This construction estimate is for kind of the final engineering services that Prine and Newhoff will provide through the construction of the Safe Routes to School and Civic Plaza project. So the fee is estimated at $155,000. It's a 12-week timeline. They are coordinating closely with the Road Commission as they do the Hammond project from Town Line to approximately Olson's this summer, as well as they're coordinating closely with our Civic Plaza that we worked with Beck and Rader to design, landscaping. So we've got kind of a lot of moving pieces here. I think that $150,000 is, I don't remember where, I think it's pretty close to 10 to 15% of the total cost of the infrastructure.
Okay, with that,
Oh, one
Go
other
ahead.
thing, sorry. And again, going back to our budget, if we are within budget, this would be paid for through our grant funding. We can cover that, and we can do that with our revitalization and placemaking. So
And otherwise,
Beth has cautioned me about just, it's hard to know where final bids will end up with
Right.
construction, but based on the estimates that we've received from Prine and Newhoff and the budget that we have right now, we have grant funding to cover this.
and I have talked with Prine and Newhoff a little bit about, because, right, having lived through COVID and trying to do some projects during COVID, we have seen bids that, aren't anywhere near engineers' estimates. So I'm always a little, I was weary before that, but COVID really makes you weary of it. Did talk with Prine and Newhoff. We do expect to be right at that level. They have very specific costs because of the Safe Routes to School project. So the contractors have very specific guidelines with Prine and Newhoff, as I understand it, or with contractors. Prine and Newhoff has conveyed that to me. So I'm very hopeful that we will be at or very close to that contract amount. And with that, Claire's correct. Between the two foundations, the one MEDC grant and the Safe Routes to School, those would be covered.
Is this, so Prine and Newhoff, they're handling all of the engineering here. This is not in addition to any money being spent by the township through Wade Trim?
Correct.
Wade Trim hasn't been on this project. So this was, I think this was, actually, I was thinking when Claire mentioned it, when she said, this is the last contract, and I was like, oh, it's been a long haul. So we started with Prine and Newhoff on this based on the fact of they have extensive, not that Wade Trim doesn't have experience with it, but Prine and Newhoff had extensive treatment dealing with the Safe Routes to School program. In particular, Connie Hauk did, and at the time, Connie as well knew professionally the road commission engineer at that time. So that was definitely another reason. I remember asking the board if we could use Prine and Newhoff for that, and the board concurred, and we started down this relationship with Safe Routes to School for those two reasons: their experience with Safe Routes to School and their professional relationship with the engineer, which we thought would be beneficial. And it has helped. That engineer's no longer there, but it still has helped. I will say on this project, Claire mentioned, we've worked hard to try to coordinate with the Road Commission. That is true. Part of the way through this, early this year, I think it was early this year, correct me on the timeline, Claire, we learned that the Road Commission was going further east than they originally intended. They thought they were going from Town Line Road to, it might have been just before the holidays or something, but they were going from Town Line Road east to Olson's. Olson's, or the bus lane that comes out from TCAPS onto Hammond. And so we're like, okay, so they designed around that. And then we found out, like I said, late last year, maybe in the beginning of this year, that, oh, nope, they were going to go further, all the way to Chartwell to the roundabout, basically, where the roundabout picked up before. So that threw a little bit of time and work on us with Pride and Newhoff and adjusting to that. All that went off successfully to say we had a meeting a couple weeks ago with Pride and Newhoff, our staff here, and then we met with the road commission in the afternoon, and everything was lined up from a design standpoint, so that's gone well. Now, things don't always go as you plan. With the flooding, the road commission is no longer going that far. They're going to go from Town Line Road to their original,
Right there by Lewis, the Lewis property?
yes,
So just the east side of the bus.
Olson's Bus Garage, right in that area. So
That's
they're,
unfortunate,
go,
because
yeah.
that portion between there and Chartwell needs to be fixed.
So what happened in their defense is they already had a lot of that engineered from a previous year, and then they pushed the Hammond Road back, which we weren't entirely sad about. Although we know Hammond Road needs to be done, we were happy to have it linked up with this. But then that new portion, they didn't have fully engineered, so they just couldn't finish the last part of it with everything that went on in the past couple weeks with the flooding, and we know how much work that they've done with the roads, and understandably been having to deal with that. So the projects won't completely line up as much as we thought. We are also trying to let the bid at the very same time. We still may, but we're going to proceed with what our time frame is and hope that theirs lets about the same time as well. Because the hope would be that the same contractor would be interested, hopefully to present some economies of scale. But even if we don't have that, just from the public's perception of the coordination of the project, that would be helpful. Rather than two contractors, kind of out there.
What is the duration of the project?
They're saying 12, so generally it'd be closer to 10 weeks. She's saying 12 weeks just to allow for some coordination with the road commission. So I think it'll be 12 weeks at the most.
It's 12-week construction.
It does. Oh, yeah, I see that. The estimate they've got for construction, observation, and on-site testing, that's obviously carrying the bulk of these costs. Is that a real number? That's like 16 weeks, a little over 4 months of somebody being on-site?
Yeah, and they're required to, with it being a federal project, federally funded by MDOT, they need to have someone on site. They have said that to cut costs, we can, on certain days, they can send staff like myself or Nathan or someone out to inspect if it's really just, taking an observation or taking the weather or something like that. So, but there does need to be somebody on site based on the federal funding that we have.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? It's been a long road, no pun intended. And most of our work, when we're talking about the road commission work and the timing of the school year, that's really important because when they're doing their work, it's going to be on Hammond Road in the intersection. From what we understand, ours will not be as time sensitive with the school year because we're off to the side on that trail area and the right of way. So we'll be quite a bit better off. With that, is there a motion to approve the proposal by Pride and Newhoff for construction management engineering services for East Bay Township Safe Routes to School?
I'd make that motion.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Motion is made by Bartlett, and there's support by Cook. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by no? No. Okay, Ann will do a roll call vote.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Lyle. M. Cortate. M. Cortate.
Oh, no.
S. Cortate.
Yes.
And Friend.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? Walters.
Walter.
I knew I missed somebody. I just didn't have enough names.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. All right, we will move on to, you have an agenda item where the information was provided subsequently. It is on your desk, and it is about the history intern. And basically, we're bringing this to you because of some timing issues. If we were to wait until the next board meeting, we would start to impede on some time where we want to get the intern up and running with the township. But I'll let Claire cover it a little bit more fully.
Yeah, so as you'll recall, in April, you approved or accepted that America 250 MI grant and the intern position description, with a portion of that funding going toward the intern, the intern salary. We posted the position. We received approximately 20 applications. A number of them did not include like a cover letter and a full application, but we had 20 interested individuals. Sam and I interviewed 4 individuals for the internship position last week, Wednesday and Thursday. I would say all 4 were very strong candidates. We were actually pretty surprised, just the breadth of interest and, strong background in history and writing skills that we received. This week, we will be following up with references and interviewees and making a recommendation on the final candidate for the position. We just weren't quite to the point for this meeting to be able to recommend a final individual. So again, as you'll recall, it's May through August. It's part-time, working up to 37 hours per week. The wage is $18 an hour. It will last for no more than 4 months. But tonight, we're looking for a motion to allow the supervisor the capacity with the recommendation from myself to hire the intern prior to next month's meeting, just so we can kind of get them up and running before.
And we would, just one second, we would supply the board subsequent information on which of the 4 applicants was picked for that. As you know, most of the college kids are already done with their finals by about a week now, so we would like to get them rolling. The real hang-up was just in checking references and going through those things. But as Claire said, there were 4 qualified individuals. Sue?
Thank you. I just would like some clarification as if this is intended to be an on-site position or if it's going to be a satellite program.
Yeah, so will be largely on-site. So they'll be sharing an office with Nathan, and in the grant are some equipment that is grant fundable for their technical needs to complete the tasks.
Looking at the resumes, they all look very strong, but I do have concerns with the ones that are more than 50 miles away.
So that is one thing that they are talking with, is what their housing issue is. And I've talked with other people in our region that are hiring in different industries for internships, and that's a common issue. You really have to either have someone who's kind of from the area, which some are, or they might have a lead on some housing in the area. And Claire and Sam have talked with them about that as well. So if they aren't specifically from this area in the resume, then they probably likely have a friend where they're staying with them, or some option for their housing. So any of them would be a potential, and we wouldn't have the hang-up that they couldn't find housing and then have to go back again.
We did make it clear with the interview that this was an in-person position, and so that was communicated.
But they could be off-site at sometimes, library, interviewing someone, all of those types of things.
They will be
so.
working closely with library. There's the historical kind of head person, I can't remember her title, but specializes in history through the library. She's in the Kingsley branch, as well as she has a number of volunteers that are very willing to work with our interns. So we're pretty excited about that. They seem very enthusiastic and committed to supporting this internship.
Well, we're losing a whole generation, as long, the longer we wait, the
Yeah,
more lost history we'll have.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we were a little bit bummed last year. I think we had some, when we interviewed, I didn't think we found somebody last time clear cut, correct? And we just had some capacity issues with just a lot of projects going on. So we didn't pull the trigger even though it was funded through the Township Board and waited. And, you know, good things come to those who wait. Now it's funded through a grant. So. Is there a motion to allow that capacity to hire with, on the supervisor's capacity with recommendation from the Director of Planning and Zoning to hire the intern per the position description? And then, of course, we would notify the Township Board.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Okay. Motion by Walters, support by Cook. Further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for that, appreciate it. Looking forward to that. Okay, we move on to appointments and compensation. So there are two things here. When we were going through the appointments, and it's a little bit convoluted because we're switching a couple terms, but you'll see for the Planning Commission, we have some reappointments. Paul Gonzalez, his term will be up in the end of this July. Steve Richardson will as well. So that creates, and also Renee Edley has resigned. So to fill those three vacancies, we are suggesting to reappoint Paul Gonzalez. That would be to a full term. Now, we do need to keep these all so that two expire in 27, 28, and then 29. So I am proposing that Steve Richardson would fulfill that partial term of 26 to 28. And then we do have a new oncomer that we have interviewed that is interested, and we were very interested in him becoming on the Planning Commission, and that would be a full term of 26 to 29. And that is Jacob Straight. Actually, he's here tonight, and if you squint just a little bit, he may look like somebody you know. He's related to Butch.
The
and
genetics are strong.
They are. He is Butch's nephew. But actually, I came to know him a different way, not through Butch at all, but just through the ambulance and another process that we went through, and really liked Jake. Do you go by Jake or just Jacob? Jake, okay. Really liked Jake's background, and talked with Claire about it and asked Jake if he would be interested, and when we were posting, and he was one who responded. So, and then for the Planning Commission Township Board representative, I asked Mindy. Mindy has been on it for some time. Asked her if she would still like to be involved in that. She mentioned that she does. She enjoys that and does contribute to that. Her term, per the statute, concurs with her legislative body term, which would go till the next election in 28 here. So that is the Planning Commission appointments that are recommended to the board. The Zoning Board of Appeals, we have had, what's that?
Voting no on you.
Oh.
Can I just,
Yeah.
Steve Richardson no longer lives in the township, but we're utilizing his knowledge as the ability through statute that he can be a liaison without being a resident.
He can be a member without being a resident, that's correct. And Steve has an interest in still serving the community that he once lived in, and specifically, he does have a background that we don't have in the other commissioners, which is his building background expertise, and he works for Traverse City Light and Power now, and so just recently, Claire had mentioned to me he was able to help out with some questions on
He
something.
was a construction company before.
Correct, but he's with Light and Power, and so that's helpful, that utility and construction background. So as long as he would like to serve, and as long as we don't have someone who is submitting interest with kind of that background, because as you know, by statute, you kind of have to have all different backgrounds. So for example, with Jake's, his background really is emergency services. He works in emergency services. So that covers the Planning Commission. Down to the Zoning Board of Appeals, we did have, Trenton Lee was on our ZBA. He has stepped down due to some family commitments. And I think that he has a child now, right, Claire? So fostering. Well, that's fantastic. So we understand his reason for doing that. So Paul Gonzalez's term is the same for the ZBA, so he would need to be renewed. John Ewan is another 2026 expiration, and he has messaged with me and would like to continue on the ZBA. Luette Frost was an alternate member before, and she would like to step in as a permanent member where Lindsay, what was Lindsay's last name? Lindsay Wolf, thank you, where Lindsay Wolf had stepped off of the ZBA. Dave Boosfield is a member of our Zoning Board of Review. He's very interested in things that are going on in the township and really desires to be even more involved than the Board of Review allows him to be. He'll still stay on there, and we're very thankful for that because that's a very hard board to fulfill. But he was interested in the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then similar to Mindy, I asked Tracy if she would stay on with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and she agreed to do so. The Board of Review, as I mentioned, we do have Mike Senard, who expressed an interest, very thankful for that. Met him through working on a special assessment district, and he's retired in the area, and he came in and talked with Ryan Porty and is interested in serving on that Board of Review. I will mention, too, the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, they were interviewed by Claire and the Chair of the Planning Commission, Dan Leonard. So I appreciated their time in doing that. So in all told, you'll see the motion, the possible motion, and it lists each of those that I mentioned there. Are there any questions or discussion? Yes, Mindy?
On the agenda, it says appointments and compensation. Is there a compensation piece in here?
You know what? Did
There wasn't anything in there.
I not add that piece?
No.
We can put that onto another one. I'll discuss that, but this is just the appointments right now.
Okay.
We can cover that in a second, and we can always delay that until the next meeting, no problem.
So all of these folks would require an oath of office to come to make an appointment with me in the clerk's office to take care of that. And then the Board of Review must be done within 10 days.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. We require it for East Bay Township. Statute doesn't require it, but we do from East Bay Township for the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the Board of Review is required by statute, and that, you're right, that is within 10 days. So they'll all get notification of that. With that, is there a further discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt on the recommended appointments of the appointments. Approve.
Approve?
Make a motion to approve the recommended appointments to the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Board of Review as listed.
That's the value of a standardized form when you approve it. Is there support?
Support.
Okay. Motion is made by Cook, support by Bartlett. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, that is unanimously approved. Okay.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Don't we already have their wages on the,
We do. So the actual, the second part of this
We
was,
adopted that at the budget.
yeah,
the second part of this that I drafted, but was not here, and will be back to you next month, is consideration of the Corridor Improvement Authority. I must have, you know what I did? I must have pulled the wrong document. Maybe I saved it and then put in the corridor improvement and I pulled the wrong doc. Anyway, the point is, the Corridor Improvement Authority right now doesn't receive compensation. We don't on subcommittees. We don't do that. They are not a subcommittee. We could just pay them under that, but in our resolution of wages, we have the board specifically broken out by department. So like 703, 704, the 247, I think, is the board of review. So what I would like to do is bring them back for formal recognition and adding them to the resolution for the wages. Glenn?
Yeah, the corridor authority, the township is gonna pay them, they're not gonna pay them out of their money?
No, we can pay them out of their money, but the township board would still need to approve that.
I didn't know we had any authority over them.
Oh my goodness, everything they do is a recommendation to you. Is,
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yes,
so if they spend money, if they were to approve a contract, it would come to you as a recommendation to approve that contract. Yeah.
It's a lot different than the city is, and city doesn't,
See, you're just like everyone else, assuming that we're the Traverse City DDA, and we're really not. We're the Beach District, TIF District. We're just different.
but it is different, because they just turn in their budget every year, and what they do is what they decide.
Well, and listen, we're going through this for the first time, so if there's any differences, I'll acknowledge that and let you know. But the way I heard it when we went through it, and Claire, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is they will approve a budget, just like the Parks Commission,
Right.
just like the Parks Commission. But yet, if they are going to approve a contract, if they're going to take a large infrastructure, that will come through the board. Did I misspeak as you know it to be, Claire?
No, that is correct. Yes, every budget needs to be approved, any
Yeah.
infrastructure project. That's how the city is as well.
And we did go through that, Glenn, not trying to dish you at all, but we did go through that when we approved the Corridor Improvement Authority before. But as I've said, this is, Corridor Improvement Authorities, TIFs, they're pretty nuanced and they're complicated and there's a lot of facets to them. So I can understand, missing that or misinterpreting that for sure. So, okay, well, I will bring you back the compensation for the Corridor Improvement Authority next month. And that is really it. We've come to the end of our agenda. We do have public comment. We have the opportunity for public comment. I keep thinking my glasses are on my head, and they're not. So if there's anybody who would like to deliver public comment, you're welcome to stand up to the podium and let us know your perspective. Seeing none, our next meeting is June 8th. 2026, that is a regular meeting, and we will see you next month. And if there's no objections, then we stand adjourned. Have a good night, everybody. Drive safe.